Hello everyone, welcome to the latest edition of the Royal Blue podcast. I'm your host Chris Beesley, and today I'm joined not just by regular guest Gavin Buckland, but we've got a special guest Steve Zocek, who's here. He's going to talk general Everton matters, but also talk about his new book, all about Howard Kendall's glory years at Everton. Good to have you on, Steve. How are you?
Very well, thanks, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, good. Obviously we'll come on to that book later on, but if we just start with some general matters. How are you, Gav? Because I haven't seen you wincing a bit coming in.
I've got a bit of a gammy, like if this is the podcast for the last few months, but I'm getting there.
Yeah, good to hear. Passed the leg fitness test.
The perils of playing footy 3 times a week for absolutely donkey's years and other stuff, catches up with you. Yeah. So I'm on the physio Zoom at the moment. I
hope you're not having to hang those boots up just yet.
Doesn't stop me performing on the Royal Blue podcast, though. That's
fair enough.
Kroll. You have to pass a fitness test before Kroll lets me on.
Fair enough. I'll start with going bang up to date. I hope you've both seen this. I don't know. I've seen it. Steve's got his away shirt on from last season there. The new Everton home kit has been unveiled this morning, and see a historic time, the first season at Hill Dickinson Stadium. Just wondered what your thoughts were. Have you seen it, Gav?
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
I mean, don't know about Steve, but I'm the last person we'll talk to about football kits. I've not had an Everton kit since 1971, so for me, it's all a bit of a bit of fuss over nothing.
Was it?
Yeah, I had the pair of Alan Ball white boots as well. So it's a bit of a fuss about nothing for me. Don't know if it's an age thing or just a personal choice, but I don't know. Are the socks blue, by the way, this time?
They are blue,
which is very unusual. We've had in the past, we've had blue socks.
I was looking at this, and since Moyes' last season, actually, 12-13, that was the last time they had royal blue socks. They had you remember they had the navy, the 1 year under Roberto Martinez, they had the navy socks. He says Steve's shaking his head there. Otherwise, it's been white. It's been white otherwise for the last 12 years.
I think 79, 80, 81, we had blue socks as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. When Gordon Lee was that.
Gordon Lee was the manager. Right, but so that was the main take. I presume that black sort of line, they like waves or something like that.
That's the royal blue Mersey, that.
That's absolutely. I presume no, that's what I mean. But it's all a bit of a nonsense over nothing for me. I'm not, it doesn't really bother me. I'm more important about the people who wear the kit than the kit itself. To be fair.
Yeah. What about you then, Steve? You got your last season's on there the away. Yeah. Have you seen it? Have you seen the new one?
To be honest with you, I haven't.
Okay.
I was trying to get a signal before in the office.
Okay.
But couldn't get a signal, so I'll have to have a look later when I get home.
Yeah.
As long as it's blue, Chris, that's the main thing.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, they've not gone rogue on us in that respect.
Or even the half white, half blue band in 1985-86, isn't it? Really,
the bib, the Lineker bib.
I mean, there's a whole lot of chatter, isn't it, about kits in general. I mean, I'm not saying I know Everton are no different to anybody else. Pay a lot of money, don't you know, for the kit. Was 115 quid.
Well, there's two options, isn't it? You can actually have the one that the players wear now, isn't it? So as opposed to the replica.
Yeah. It's a hell of a lot of money, isn't it? Really, but it's just the modern game for you, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of chat on that one. I was out there. There's a piece from Matt Jones and myself, and I think Joe Thomas is having a go as well, giving his thoughts. So look out for that one. But as we say, return to the blue socks for what that's worth. It kind of looks to me like it's based on the one who won in '87 for the last league title.
That colour play,
that seems to be the inspiration, but whether it
hopefully doesn't inspire us, doesn't it? Really, but
lives up to that one, I'm not sure. But if we turn to footballing matters, and we were discussing it before we went out. Actually, Kenny Tete, he's an interesting one. Reports over the weekend, Everton were trying to do a deal for him. It seems that Fulham have come back and made a counter offer. It'd be an interesting one to see where he ends up. I mean, what were your thoughts on it, Gav? I mean, I said if they were able to do a deal, I think it would be a smart move for me. But if he decides to stay at Fulham, maybe
they've upped their offer, haven't they, or something. I don't know, a bit of an awkward one for me, this. First of all, I'd query his injury record.
That seems to be the biggest thing.
I think it was mentioned on Monday. Was it like think he might have said on Monday that was 408 days injured in 5 years or something. Played 20 odd games last year, but as Joe said, I think on the pod on Monday, that actually if Fulham want to renew his contract and they know more about his fitness levels than any of us, then that must mean that they've got some confidence that actually around them. So it's a bit of an awkward one. But what I'd say is, for me, is I don't know whether he's a backup number 2 or a first choice number 2. For me, he sort of falls between both, really, because he's because of his injury record, possibly his age as well. He's 29, isn't he?
Yeah, is that 30?
Is that what you'd want, a profile of your first choice right back for the season? And again, if he was a backup number 2, well, again, given his injury record, but given his wages and stuff, yes, you got a little bit too much you want for you want for your backup number 2. He's a little bit overqualified, would be possibly the phrase I'd use there. I mentioned last week about young, keeping young. It's one where he falls between 2 stools, really, where he's probably not got the fitness record to be first choice. I'm taking his age, but at the same time, he's a little bit overqualified to be the backup. It'll just be interesting to see how the club sees it in terms of will they go out and buy another one, a younger one possibly, or will they just again mix and match because they've got other options elsewhere that they want to pursue. In terms of elsewhere on the pitch, and he could always play O'Brien there anyway. So it's a bit of an awkward one for me. I'm not exactly over the moon about it, really. That's a proper footballer's phrase, isn't it? Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. As I was saying last week, a lot of these choices depend on what's going to happen elsewhere within other deals we do during the summer.
Steve, would it be a smart move for you, or where are you at on the right back situation?
I think we definitely need a regular right back, and with all respect to Seamus Coleman, I think he's everything. To me, I always liken him to Mickey Lyons. He just epitomises everything about Everton Football Club. And obviously now, when you get to a certain age, especially in that profession, you are going to be more injury prone. And he's not reliable in that sense, but I think he's great to have around the dressing room. Yeah. He's just like that sort of a figure. Mm-hmm. But we just need somebody who's a bit younger now who you can rely on, to be fair. I'm sorry for Nathan Patterson. I mean, when Nathan first came in, I know Joe McBride, who played with Everton years ago, he actually coached Nathan at Scotland, a level. And he told me that he was a player for the future. But I think his injuries have shown that, he's had a few knockbacks, and when he's played, he looks a little bit out of position at times. And, so we need somebody who's more sort of reliable and consistent.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in terms of Nathan Patterson, Gav, I mean, it's pretty damning, isn't it? If they're obviously going for Tete, and the fact that he's at both Ben Godfrey and Jake O'Brien basically been picked out of position ahead of him, really. I mean, do you think, is the writing on the wall now for his Everton career, Patterson? You
could argue that Coleman and Garner have played ahead of him on occasions, haven't they? Well, it's what I say about Patterson is he's been at the club 3.5 years, which is a long time, isn't it? I mean, if you have a look at his career, he's actually not played a lot of games, either for Everton or Rangers. I think, he's played a lot of times for Scotland, but he wasn't first choice at Rangers, was he?
Yeah, Tavernier was it.
And if you're at a club 3.5 years, you don't all of a sudden become the regular choice, do you, and start playing. That's what football history will show you, and that's what I've always said. It's not going to happen for you, really. And there may be reasons for this, possibly because of the lack of options elsewhere. That I'm surprised that he's not. There's not been talk of moving. I know there's been talk about possibly moving back to Rangers, possibly, but I'm surprised that there's been no talk. There's not been or attempts for it to get rid. Just get him off the wage bill, because he's not played a lot, but he's probably costing us a few bob, and we've got alternatives elsewhere. But I'd be very, very surprised if it happens to him. Did he sign a 5-year deal? Was it? So he's got 18 months left on his contract.
I think now David Moyes is there, and he's obviously assessed the squad. And I've got every belief in his backroom staff, and I think he knows, or they know, who to keep and who to get rid of. And I wouldn't be surprised if Nathan Patterson was showing the door. But it's one of them things. He's had a chance. I just wished it had worked out better for him. But
it's fitness, isn't it? And also as well, it's not that easy, is it really? If he's on reasonably big money with his fitness record, it's not going to be easy to move on, is it really? He was telling last week that we had the discussion about the right back options on Friday's podcast. Mm-hmm. We went through them all. I don't think if you mentioned Patterson.
Yeah.
You go through Garner, O'Brien, Coleman, I was mentioning Young, all that type of stuff. And we didn't even mention Patterson. He's just sort of like completely in the background. And but from a human perspective, that's just sad, isn't it? His professional career, and it's 3.5 years. I know he's made 40 odd appearances for us, but it's not great when you're trying to build a career that I think you'll look back at these, whatever happens to him now, for a number of reasons. I look back at these 3 or 4 years and I don't think I've wasted that.
Well, when he came in, Steve, he was seen as like the long-term successor for Seamus Coleman, wasn't it? That elusive long-term successor, I guess.
Well, as I say, he's been given a chance, and sadly, he's just, he's fallen foul to injuries, and when he's been given a chance, like I said, he's. I wouldn't say let people down. I don't believe in getting on the players' backs, but obviously, you know what it's like when the fans start, giving you a bit of stick. It must affect the confidence, so I don't think that helps as well. But as I said, with the coaching staff we've got there with David Moyes, I think their minds are already made up who they're going to keep, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was actually sold. But how many times have we sold players? They've gone to other clubs, and all of a sudden they're flourished elsewhere, and you think, why did we sell him?
Yeah.
But can you take that chance?
I think a lot of clubs can say that, can't they? It's not just Everton, isn't it? There's a lot of clubs who sell. I mean, we've taken advantage of that, haven't we?
Yeah.
But, and I know what you're saying, generally it is a bit frustrating when you see people who think they've gone at Everton and then all of a sudden kick on.
Adam Luckman.
Yeah.
Well, he's a classic example, isn't he, really? He's probably the number one example, isn't he, really? Yeah. But sometimes I don't remember anybody saying at the time, Luckman, we've done there.
Yeah.
I tell you what it was when didn't he go on loan? I think when Sam came in, didn't he, 17, 18, I think.
Okay.
He sent him on loan. I think that was a surprise.
Leipzig, was that something?
Yeah, that was a surprise. But don't I remember everybody like crying in the streets. People develop at different... When you've done a lot of stuff around this, Steve, people develop at different ages, don't they, sometimes? But we have taken advantage of that principle ourselves. With players. Where was Arteta's career going in 2005?
Yeah, until he came to Everton.
He'd been around a bit, hadn't he?
Rangers and stuff. Yeah.
You'd hope there's one or two in the current squad who'll kick on. Alcaraz has been around it.
Yeah,
been around like 3 or 4 clubs. Hasn't he? Some big clubs in early on in his career. Let's hope he can find a place at Everton where he can settle down. I mean, Lukaku won the Serie A last year, but you could argue that his best football was played at Goodison.
Yeah.
Couldn't you really, when you look at it? So it is funny, isn't it, how certain clubs suit certain players and they don't, but then you can move on elsewhere and just get the right manager, get the right teammates. And it's like we're going back to years and years ago. Peter Reid was going nowhere, wasn't he, in 1982 when he was at Bolton?
I think as well, when you look at the likes of we've had the season before last, we had a problem scoring goals, and I even said even if we would have had Erling Haaland up front, it wouldn't have made any difference. You need people to fire ammunition so we can score goals, but obviously that's one of our problems. Sadly, we've fallen down the pecking order in terms of quality. And I do believe David Moyes will bring it back. But like I say, go back to the days of 77-8 when Latchford and Dave Thomas, what a combination that was. I mean, would Bob Latchford have scored 30 goals without Dave Thomas on the left-hand side? You just need that.
Haaland scored that many goals without having all the service. I mean, Haaland's a classic example, isn't he, of somebody who, when he was younger, he was passed around loads of clubs.
Yeah.
He was on time. He was at Everton, wasn't he, for a bit?
We get reminded by that with articles from time to time, don't we?
But he's a classic example of somebody who develops at different times. I mean, when he came to us, I don't know what year it'd be, late 2010, something like that. He was obviously, I think they identified he was really good for his age, and he could score goals, but he was bigger than everybody else. And I think the general feeling across all clubs who had him was that actually it's a development thing. He's bigger than most of the people around him.
But
they'll catch up. But at the same time, you don't know skills of it, his natural finishing ability. But at that age, if you're looking at his technical skills, well, he's got none. He's very, his technical skills are not to the level you would expect from a top class player. I mean, when he floundered at City last year, when City weren't playing well, didn't he? So you can see when you look at him as a player, look at his technical skills and look at his height and possible advantages, and you say, well, no, we don't really fancy him. And a lot of clubs, and a lot of clubs didn't, did they? So I wouldn't criticise Everton for that. They just, loads of people have been at, Jags was at Everton, wasn't he? I think Baines was.
Ended up having to re-sign him for big money.
Lots of people have been at clubs at young ages and being binned off. Kenny was at Liverpool in the mid-60s, wasn't he? Dalglish, he played for them, played for the youth team, but they'd sent him back to Scotland. So, and he's Liverpool's greatest ever player. So it is a difficult thing to judge. But with Patterson, going back to Patterson, he's been here for 3.5 years. He's not been here for 6 months. Therefore, what you're seeing at that, it's not going to happen for him, mate, probably.
Yeah. Just wondering, Steve, that we've got on the right back situation. So if they're looking at Kenton FC, they want to bring in Kenny Tete, and he's proven Premier League quality, but there are question marks over his fitness. I'm just wondering whether David Moyes has got the idea of he could be possibly the number one right back, but then Jake O'Brien could fit in as and when. Obviously, you're saying you've got a lot of faith in the way that Moyes can do that. Do you think that could be the case? Because he knows he's got to spend a lot of money this summer. There's a big rebuild in other areas. Is he perhaps keeping his powder dry for big money elsewhere in those more attacking options and thinking, if I can get somebody who is proven Premier League quality on the free, it's good business?
Yeah, I think having somebody like Gavin said there, I know there's a question mark over his fitness, but we are very fortunate in that respect where we've got, we've said about O'Brien playing at right back. We've struggled in the past when in them positions. I think David Moyes knows where he needs to strengthen midfield. We need somebody in midfield who can create. We haven't had a creator, I don't think, since Arteta left. And we definitely need a striker who you can get goals with double figures. So I think, again, David knows exactly where he needs strengthening, but he will be looking at the people who he wants to bring in. And I've got every faith in David Moyes. I love him to bits. 5 years ago, when we're going through this transition, manager after manager, which has never been the Everton way. I was saying back then, Moyes should come back, and people were saying that's going backwards. But who's took Everton forward since David Moyes left all them years ago? So I've got every confidence that this season, if we achieve mid-table, that would be a great start for Everton after what we've been through in recent years.
Yeah. I mean, Steve mentions the issue with the striker, and we're hearing reports about the ongoing pursuit of Thierno Barry, and he's one of these. There was a lot of players actually in this UEFA European Under-21 Championship. So I'll see another one linked with Everton, Voltemada.
He's been linked with lots of people.
He's top scorer, isn't he? Is it 6? He scored again last night. So obviously his Germany beat Barry's France in the semi-final, but Barry seems to be the one who we're hearing more in terms of Everton. I mean, Moyes does has that reputation, doesn't he, of developing the hungry young players, and it does seem to be. Obviously, we've seen England are in the final as well, and on the lead Carsley. Could it be as a good area for Everton to look at this tournament with the under-21s in terms of the profile of player that Everton should be looking at?
Everybody be looking at that one. This Moyes watching a Club World Cup, is he?
Yeah, he was. I saw him last week, wasn't he? He was watching Benfica. Was it Boca Juniors in Miami?
We'll have people there. The only problem is with that if there's somebody stands out, like fella, the German fella, I won't try and mention his name. There's lots of people looking at him, aren't they, really, you know. So possibly, I mean, the fella from Villarreal is, I'm not seeing him, so I wouldn't say.
Because he's not playing much, actually. He's coming off the bench and stuff.
I have not seen much of Villarreal, to be honest with you. Apart from when he played us. And
20 years
does,
ago.
from what I've read and stuff, he does appear to be like that type of Moyes striker where he'll go out wide and you know, and let people, you know, push up from midfield. He'll do a lot of running without necessarily being like 20 goals a season striker. It's sort of like Antonio figure is probably, you know, like that. So that's an interesting one, really. The only thing I'd say about Moyes is as much as, you know, he's probably been in England in the 21st century the best procurer of defenders, hasn't he, in terms of buying young defenders and turning them into internationals and then, you know, selling them on to big fees. I can't think of many managers who've done it better than Moyes. And even in midfield, but strikers is his Achilles heel, isn't it? You know, he's had a hell of a lot of strikers in his career, and he's never really had one. He had the act, didn't he, for a bit. He scored, 20 goals in a season. He's not a manager who builds a team around a 20, 25 goal season striker, isn't he? He builds one, like, and you reminded me there, Steve, he builds on a 10 goal a season striker who will do a hell of a lot of running, who will open up the channels for, you know, his, I think I always say this, don't I, and lots of people do, his sort of main offensive bit on the pitch is the three players behind the striker, isn't he? He was at Everton, he was at West Ham, and I think that's what he wants. So I think with Barry, it'll be more around the role he plays into the team rather than the number of goals he scores. I mean, you said like you know, get a striker in, he gets us into double figures. If Beto played an entire season, would he get into double figures?
I would say so.
Yeah, I think so. Wouldn't you? You know, if you wanted somebody,
so should they be given all the changes that they need to be making?
But
should be spending big money on another?
It's a moot point, isn't it? Really, has Beto done enough under Moyes? And he's obviously been tutored better, hasn't he, on the training pitch in terms of his first touch and bringing others into play. Still straight offside a bit too much for my liking. You know, it sounds daft. You probably wouldn't have said this even like in January, that actually where are we going to get somebody who's going to do that role better for us than Beto, which is absolutely mad. But we'll see. I can see why, looking at his profile, this Barry, I can see why Moyes is interested in him, because Moyes, he doesn't like a fox in the box, does he, and stuff like that. He's only attribute to score goals. He wants a lot of work, right? So you can see why he's interested. And Beto, it's interesting, isn't it? Really, there's a psychology there, isn't it? If you're a number 2 striker and there's pressure off you a little bit, you're okay. You know, like any player. But if you then become the main man, the psychology,
which kind of Beto kind of was towards the end.
But it was like Calvert-Lewin was still on the, you know, the Calvert-Lewin was still there, wasn't he? Like in the round, you know. And Beto had been a number 2, the 2, so he'd not been the first choice, hadn't he? Really, and he got games to the end of the season because, you know, Calvert-Lewin was injured and stuff. But if you don't get anybody in the summer who is obvious number 1 and he becomes the number 1 striker, that can affect the player psychologically, because the pressure's now on you. There's more pressure on you in that environment, isn't it, than if you're the backup. I always think, and it's just be fascinating how that plays out.
But one thing I always look back on, and a lot of people won't, they remember it, but when Rooney went to Man United, there was a big question mark who they're going to bring in, and when we signed Marcus Bent, I mean, I remember being at Crew Alex for a pre-season game, and obviously there was the banners displayed on the away end, Ken Wright out, blah blah blah. But who would have taken a chance with? And what did he score that season? How many did he
7,
score?
I think.
Yeah, and he got off to I think he just had a great season by his standards. So there is somebody out there, and as I say, with David Moyes' knowledge and his, like I say, his backroom staff, his scouts, don't know exactly what he's looking for, and maybe we can find somebody else like a Marcus.
But that was the classic Moyes thing, wasn't it? Your main striker only gets 7, but somebody like KO gets 12. You know? And that was the same at West Ham, wasn't it? And So it'll be interesting to see. I think he's looking for a striker who I think will work for the team and work for the style of play that he likes, rather than 20-25 goals a season guy, you know.
Yeah, Steve, you said Everton need a striker though, but would you be happy? Would you be satisfied with Beto being first choice? Or what?
I would be. Yeah, as long as you've got people that can play to his strengths. I mean, people might laugh at this, what I'm saying now. He's proven he can finish, and you know, granted, yes, he's missed a few chances, but you can't. You know, Calvert-Lewin has been guilty of missing chances. The older, you can't expect any striker to score every time he's got the opportunity. But I think we need somebody. And Beto has got pace, and I think he's proven on a one-on-one. You know, he has put the ball away, and I've heard people say, "Oh, if that would have been Calvert-Lewin, he wouldn't have scored." But yeah, I think if you get, like I say, the best the players in that can feed Beto, I reckon he would score a minimum of 10 goals. It's not a great ratio of goals for a striker at any other club, but we're focusing on Everton, and I firmly believe Beto will do a good job for us.
Don't tell Tony Scott this, by the way. He's not watching, you know. But going back to what you're saying, when you say his ratio, his goals per minute ratio is actually
really good.
It's really good, isn't it?
Yeah.
You look at games and goals in 1 and 3 guy, but when you have a look at the actual minutes he's played as a sub, and he often gets subbed himself, doesn't he? His goals per minute ratio is actually, you know, a lot higher than what you think. It's just that thing when you become the psychology when you're a main man can change you. It's just whether you can trust them for an entire season. Yeah. That's the thing for me.
I think the Premier League era, I think Everton's been a graveyard for Everton number 9s, because you know who didn't want James Beesley when he came, who didn't want Andy Johnson when he came, and they didn't, and the Yak, you know, it just didn't work out. But
because I don't think Moyes has ever really worked that out. Beyond somebody who's a bit of a workhorse for the team, I don't really think that Moyes in his managerial career has worked out. If you want something different to that, how would you make it work? Because Andy Johnson obviously wasn't a workhorse, was he? He was like he was like a predator, wouldn't you? You know, BT was probably a little bit of both. Diak was more of a goal scorer, didn't work that hard, and he got injured, didn't he? So there's you know, somebody like Beckford came in for a season, didn't he?
Did well.
He's a bit of a Marcus Bent type character. I mean, you have a look at Beckford, he was a bit in and out, a bit inconsistent, but he was our top scorer, 11 goals, you know.
But then was sold on, wasn't he?
Yeah. So that's always been his Achilles heel, getting the best out of a striker for me. It would be interesting to see how that develops. Beto. I mean, one of the things that could happen here is if they got Barry in, if they got an offer for Beto, whether they'd sell him.
It was interesting because given the potential suitors for him who's been mooted, is Leeds United. So do you want to really be selling him potentially
first game of the season? Yeah, but you got to have an eye on finances, haven't you? You know, that Barry's talking about whether they're trying to negotiate down, aren't they, from his €40?
Which is about 34 million, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, but that's got to be financed, and. You know, I think Beto might have gone in January. If they got an offer in for Beto.
Oh, I think he said to me himself, actually, I think after the Crystal Palace game that he would have done,
Yeah. That they got an offer in for Beto, especially on the back of like a decent end of the season with Everton, whether they'd accept it and then use that to reinvest elsewhere. But we've got a lack of options there, haven't we? I mean, Chimisi is just... disappointingly for me, he's
still a young lad, though.
Yeah. But he's had 2 seasons, hasn't he?
He's not close to me. He's a skillful player, but he's not.
He's another one like Patterson, who's just drifting.
I think as well, when you were talking before about midfield players, Harrison Armstrong, I know people won't like me for saying it, but he'll come back from Derby County and he'd be like a new signing, if you understand. And didn't he got Young Player of the Year at Derby? He was only there for
They liked
Easter.
him a lot. I know I've got a friend who's a Derby fan, and they really rated him. They want him back, to be honest. I don't know about the manager, but the fans are really keen. But I think he's one who Moyes will look at in the summer, at least pre-season. It could go either way, whether they give him another loan or whether they decide to integrate him back into the first team
squad. I think what happened with Harrison Armstrong is the fact he's dropped down a level, and sometimes that's what they need. I mean, that might do Schmidt a world of good. I mean, there's been linked with a move to Stoke. Maybe that's what he needs to boost his confidence. I think it's when we have seen him, which has only been periodically, and sometimes when you come into a game as a sub, you need time to get it into the pace of the game and everything else. So it's a bit unfair to, like, I'm not saying we are, but for fans to judge him on these sort of like
cameos,
appearances.
Yeah. I think with one with Schmidt, he's probably because he had so many injuries last season. The idea probably would have been to have loaned him out last season, but because of all the injuries he's got in there.
How many years he's got left on his contract?
Well, did he sign 5 years when he came? So has he got 3?
I don't know.
I think he did 5. I'm not.
That'll come into it. So, yeah, he's another one who's drifting, isn't he? Really, and he needs game time, doesn't he? Next season. But as you say, Chris, I think you're right. His idea that would have been the middle year, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
His second season. We'll see about that. But if Beto went, we probably need another striker then, wouldn't we?
It's funny, it's just come back to me now. We were talking before about the right back berth.
Mm-hmm.
There's that young Roman Dixon.
Yeah.
But he played at Tottenham beginning of the season. And I think he got man of the match. It was an awful performance by Everton, but he actually got man of the match, and he's never sort of featured since. And I find that bizarre, the fact that he didn't look out of place, hence the reason he got man of the match. Yeah. And he's never really been involved since, which puzzles me. And is he one of these players, if you did let him go elsewhere, we'll be kicking ourselves saying, why didn't we keep him?
I mean, I'm not... I think that the Tottenham game was probably not the best game to judge. I think the fact he's not had game time, and we've had a shortage of right backs, haven't we? We've had to mix and match during the season. Probably indicates that they don't think he's there yet, that he needs more football at a lower level. I'm not saying that you are right, that he might turn out to be a decent player. You think he's another one in his game time. It goes back to this thing, doesn't it? The gap between academy and first-team football now. It's a chasm, isn't it? You've got to be a extraordinary talent just to... The best talents don't even play academy football, do they? They just go from like a young age to playing first team. You don't. It's one of my problems with the academy football. Full stop is that if you just play 3 or 4 years in academy football, it doesn't do a hell of a lot of good for you, and the best talents miss it out because
like Harrison Armstrong actually.
Exactly. That was he was playing
only 17 last season. Yeah.
So that indicates to me that they do think there's a player there who can make it in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Somebody like Dixon, you've just got to wait and see, haven't you? I just think it's probably too early for him. But Armstrong, that sort of path he's on. Path is
pathways.
Is indicates that they do think there's a player there who can make it as a first team player at Everton from the academy. That's what you would think, wouldn't it? Really, and as you say, it'd be interesting to see what they do this year.
Yeah.
Whether they retain him or send him out on loan. I'd rather retain him, to be fair. He's been on loan to Derby. I don't see the point of
doing it again.
I think having around the first team.
But yourself, we've had a lot of managerial changes over in recent years. And like under Sean Dyche, Sean did give him that run out. And he was included in the squad for games after that, but never really featured. Did he feature in the League Cup game? I can't remember. I think he did play in that game. Mm-hmm. I can't remember that far back now. But another manager comes in, and he might not see what Sean Dyche saw him. But I think from what I've seen of him, might be a bit premature. But I really think we've got somebody there who's going to be a good asset for the future. But who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting.
I just want to get your thoughts from both of you on this one. Obviously, we're in the final week of June now. I think a lot of people are expecting Calvert-Lewin to go, Keane probably to go. But, I mean, are you concerned about Idrissa Gueye? Nothing on that one? What do you think, Gav?
They're not signed, so yeah.
Yeah, the fact that...
So technically on the 1st of July he becomes a free agent, doesn't he? Yeah. Possibly, but it's a bit of an awkward one. This because this is one of the issues, isn't it? Really around this summer transfer window. Now that football is a 365 day sport. you haven't got that natural break anymore in the summers where all this type of stuff is sorted out. I was saying about Moyes, where he's like in America, I know it does sort out contracts, but where is the time to do it really? Yeah. So I'm not concerned at the moment. From what you read, and I know what you report, Chris, the issue appears to be whether it's a 1 year or 2 year contract. I personally would just say, let's give him the 2 years. Just take it from there.
I would definitely.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think
I'd keep Keane as well.
I'd keep Keane. Yeah,
I think the general consensus is that people would be happy with that. It's whether Michael Keane wants to go and have extra minutes.
That's fourth choice. No, I wouldn't have a problem with that, because then he gets that thing about having to buy somebody, and
you probably press about 20 million to replace Keane.
We had this conversation the other week, and people were saying, there was some comments saying, well, 4-2 centre half doesn't cost you 20 million, which you get, but O'Brien was 17. When he was brought in, was he brought in like third or fourth? And that was like from abroad, that was probably cheaper. So that's like, for third or fourth, 2 centre halves, 15-20 million is not unreasonable. And especially if Tarkowski's carrying a bit of an injury. I think that there's someone who's got a decent hand to play, haven't he? Garner Gate's got a decent hand to play, hasn't he, really? Because actually, we need him probably a little bit more than he needs us. And he's probably got options elsewhere. I'd just give him the 2 years and just go with it, really, because I was never a big fan in his first spell, but in the second spell, he's proved me wrong, really. I think he's been excellent. He's still a bit, I don't know about you, I still worry about when he's with the ball, got the ball at his feet, but he's I think he's developed, hasn't he, by playing abroad.
I think, again, going back to Keane, he's another one who's been a bit of a whipping boy from the terraces.
Yeah.
I know when we got beat by City at home at Easter, he came on to replace Tarkowski, who went off injured. And, people are saying, well, if Tarkowski would have stayed on, we would have got a draw, or we may have won. You can't say that.
You can't say that.
But I think Keane, and I even said last season when we were struggling for goals, I would have even played Keane up front, because he can hit the ball.
He comes
as well.
to McLean's here again.
Yeah. But you've seen him when we've had penalty shootouts. How sweet
he's been the best finisher at the club, Keane, isn't he?
100%.
Ian Crowell's off camera at the moment, did he? He went as far as saying, what was it about whoever's converted him into a centre half from a striker should go to hell. So strong he felt about it.
He's on the swap seats.
Bring him in for this one.
Get Crowell on here. Yeah.
But so you would think, Steve, in terms of Idrissa Gueye, just give him that second year.
Give him a couple of 100%. I agree with Gavin when he said the first year wasn't so sure, but last season he was probably our best outfield player. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I get the concerns. I think that's been leaked out, or not leaked. There's just reported that at that age, all of a sudden your legs can.
You can fall off a cliff, as it were.
But that's a lot of players over 30. That risk applies, doesn't it? I'd just take the easier option, just give him 2 years. I mean, if you get a year, we've made worse choices than giving Garner Gate 2 years, but we get another year out of him. And then the second, say of last season's level, then another year we just, we still command the fee, couldn't he, with the year left? I think I'd rather keep him, because he has. I'm glad that he's proved me wrong, because he has developed as a player since he's come back. But Keane, as 4-2 centre half, I wouldn't have a problem with that, really. I think he'd be decent. I mean, he started last season well, didn't he, Keane?
Yeah.
He was decent to start last season. And
again, like any player, you need a run of games to show that consistency. If you're in and out of the side all the time, if you're a professional, you've got to give it your best.
Yeah.
Irrespective of whether you're first choice or whether you're not. But I've never. I think when Keane's been on there, I think he's always done a decent job. I remember down at Fulham, if you remember, he scored. Did he score that? Did he score?
Yeah,
spoke to him that day.
The fans are booing him 1 minute, next thing they're shouting Keano from the terraces. But no, I think, like I said, only my opinion. I certainly feel that we're not in a position to throw money about. And like you said, if we was to get rid of Keane, you've got to replace him. Have we got that money to do that? So
yeah, absolutely. Especially if you end up playing O'Brien right back, it's yeah, it just makes sense to keep him. We said this the other week, didn't we, when we were on the pod, that you'd keep him purely so you don't have to buy another centre-half, as I say, for £15 million. So, yeah, he's definitely should be retained. And from what you hear, he goes round the dressing room and he's a good lad. And not got a problem with Keane. Garner Guy, I would keep because that's the easiest decision.
Yeah, I'd imagine the ball's probably in Michael Keane's court in terms of does he want to go and be...
Yeah, he might want to play elsewhere, because he's...
32
now.
Yeah.
He's still got like 2 or 3 years left, hasn't he? Possibly. Maybe back to
longer,
Burnley.
maybe, you know, but yeah. So, Steve, the reason we've got you in another Everton book now on Kendall's glory year, so at least I'm hoping... readers will enjoy reading this. It's not one we're going to be upset about. Looking back on this particular era, you want to talk us about it? Your inspiration behind this one?
Oh, basically, it covers Howard's arrival back in 1981, and well, I did say in the book when Howard came, he signed what they call the Magnificent Seven, which everybody knows about, but he actually signed an 8th person, and he was the first one because Gordon Lee, before he left Everton, he brought Alan Irwin to the club, but he didn't actually sign him.
Alan spoke about this when he was in this very room. Yeah.
So it was actually Howard that signed Alan. I cover the period from 1981 up until he went to Bilbao in 87.
Okay.
And yes, I mean, people will remember the early years when it was rough, when all the calls for Kendall and Carter to go, attendances dropped. But, to be fair to Howard, and when people read the book, it'll tell you, I mean, I had a friend yesterday, he admitted, he'd actually read the book and he said he took everything back what he said about Howard, when about wanting him out, blah blah blah. But when you read what the players have said about him, I mean, Kendall must have had a great, strong character, knowing how much pressure he was under, but keeping that pressure out of the dressing room. He must have been. We all know he was under a lot of pressure. People talk about the turning points. Was it the goal at the Kevin Brock back pass that he's latched onto and scored? Was it the game at Stoke City in the FA Cup when Howard opened the dressing room window and told the players, listen to the fans out there, go and do it for them? Colin Harvey's promotion to number 2. It just clicked. He was on the verge of going, or we were led to believe. But Philip Carter stuck with him, and listen, isn't it good that he did? Because we wouldn't be sitting here now talking about the success Howard brought to the club.
Yeah, I mean, you've obviously written on the same era as well, Gavin Boys from the Blue stuff. And where do you stand in terms of the turning point? Is there a definitive turning point?
One there that I would definitely say is the Coventry League Cup game. After the terrible 3-0 defeat at Anfield and on the Sunday, and 9,080 people there, and I think there'd been talk that Howard, I remember the day that Howard was going to go, and I think he got Colin in, didn't he? No, there's some interesting stories about Colin, isn't it? That actually, whether that was Howard's decision, whether it was given, whether the board the board said Howard's got to take Colin. And he got Andy Gray in, didn't he? But the Coventry game was a turning point because he kept us in the League Cup, which ultimately leads to the Oxford game. And we're getting beat 1-0 late on, and Big Sam was playing for Coventry, and we equalised, and then Sharpie scored right at the Tete, didn't he? Crossed Scotland, looped up at the Gladys Street end, and Coward made the bad mistake which he missed, and at Liverpool where he'd not played Reed, and there's the famous story, isn't it, about like Reed's brother phoned Dean St John, didn't he, in World Soccer on the Sunday, said, should be playing Peter Reed, and blah blah blah, and I think the Saint realised, there's something going on here. And he goes, who are you? Goes, I'm Peter Reid's brother. Like, you know, he's got a couple of brothers. And then, but about the Coventry game, going back to that, if you won 2-1, but Reid came on as sub and was booed when he came on. But he turned the game. And then he stayed in the team then till he left. And that was a big turning point because for a number of ones. But as you say, Stoke was... there's no, say, it all changed. You say the Brock back pass, but there's a number of things as you listed there. I mean, when we talk about development, Brock was on Everton's books, Kevin Brock, when he was a youngster.
Wow.
And
maybe that's what it was. He's still
yeah. So you are right, Steve. It's like you can't say when did it change. All you can say is there is a number of things that are all interconnected that actually pushed us on, really. But I think the Coventry game for me, but you could legitimately say the Stoke game, the Brock. I'd actually think the Brock back, some of the pressure at ease then, I think, on Howard, because we'd won at Stoke, hadn't we? The form had picked up. But it's just interesting, isn't it? You could say, well, hang on a minute, but you've got to win stuff, haven't you? That like Inch's late goal in the semi-final against Southampton. Yeah. You don't know, do you? Could have got beat by Watford in the cup final.
Yeah,
it's all ifs, buts, and maybes, isn't it? There's a number of things, really. But what you said there, you're spot on. Like, is Howard never really let I think he felt the pressure, but I don't think he ever publicly or even with the players, as you say, and in saying 83, 84, I think he never really, sort of let it slip that he was massively under pressure. He had a good sense of humour, Howard, didn't he? I think that he sort of used that. But he was, he was. I think at the same time, he never forgot though. He never forgot the way the fans treated him. Absolutely.
But I think again, I know this because it was either Andy Gray or Peter Reid actually told me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What manager, when you look at Peter Reid and Andy Gray's fitness record, would have took a chance on them too?
Yeah.
And I remember Andy Gray telling me, I think it was the game against Liverpool when Harper scored the equaliser. Yeah. Obviously, confidence was low. And he said, going into the dressing room playing Liverpool, I mean, everybody would probably fear Liverpool at that time because we know how good they were. And Andy Gray would go around the dressing room instilling belief in his young ones. What you're frightened of. It's 11 against 11. Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why you need older heads in the dressing room, because youngsters obviously haven't had that experience because they're still young lads. And, Andy Gray made them believe that they could. And say we got a point out of that game.
Well, that's another turning point. That was 3 weeks before the League Cup final, wasn't it? And I remember getting beat 1-0 at half time to say, same old, going to get beat here. And we came back sharp. He missed the penalty, didn't he? And we ended up winning. We'd been a draw. Well, some would say winning 1-1. We ended up getting on. And I remember Reid saying afterwards, it's the first time that Everton have come back at Liverpool. That you can remember. Yeah. And he was right. We're there ahead, but we've pulled it back. And then we played in the League Cup final 3 weeks later. And I think they said that if we'd have got beaten against Liverpool that day, that actually the League Cup final would have turned out differently. But that gave them confidence, that game. And we got beaten in the League Cup final after the replay, you could see it was a completely different team, wasn't it? And it was more confidence, and they knew they could stand up to Liverpool. I think from that game you're talking about, and of the two games, we were very much their equals, and I think they took a lot of confidence from that. But yeah, Howard that Howard thing in the late '83, yeah, he managed that pretty well. He never really showed that he was under pressure, and he was, but. He never forgot the fans, I don't think he never forgot the criticism. I think that he.
When you look back as well, talking about the 83-84 season, won our first trophy since 1970. Yeah. Goes into the Charity Shield in August against Liverpool, and again it was treated. It was more of a serious event than what it is now. Mm. And listen, it was a grobble own goal, but doesn't matter. We were great. We were proud to have won. Then you start the season losing your first 2 games.
Yeah.
And you're going down to Chelsea on a Friday night. And I remember one of the players telling me how in that dressing room said, we can't lose this game tonight. Yeah. And of course, Richardson scored that goal.
Yeah. Played Coventry with 20,000 at the start of that season, didn't we? Yeah. It was interesting to say. Like, did you learn anything? I know cause a lot of people have said a lot of things about that, the players and stuff. Did you learn anything where you think, oh, didn't know that? Or anything, any sort of secrets that were, you obviously want to get new stuff. Was there anything that you thought, well, that's interesting? Like, anything?
Howard's team bonding.
Yeah.
Again, if people read it, they will. It's an eye opener. That's how great he was. Having instilling belief in his players, and even if you lost a game on a Saturday, they go to a Chinese restaurant on a Sunday, and you basically make them believe and take them again back to where they were before they actually lost that game. And Howard was just a master stroke that he had. And as I say, people need to read it just to find out. And what I mentioned as well was find out why he didn't rate Gary Lineker. That's another interesting one. Okay. And he turned out to be a record signing at the time. But again, that was all like mind games, because he'd gone to Lancaster Gate. Him and Gordon Milner was the the Leicester manager at the time. And obviously went to a tribunal, and Gordon Milne gets up and says his piece, why he wants whatever it was, £1 million, I think it was. So he's saying he's our best player, just got in the England squad, who is a player for the future. So Howard gets up and says, well, I'm taking a bit of a chance on this lad here. He's not really proven, and just saying all the things. Yeah. And Gary Lineker's sitting there, and he told me. And he's thinking, this guy doesn't rate me and he wants to sign me.
Yeah.
So obviously, so they got the fee down to 800,000, and when they got outside the Lancaster Gate, Howard put his arm around Gary and said, forget what was said in there, we're going to build a team around you. So that was basically, he was, like I said, that says it all. And, again, we're looking, sorry to butt in there, but we're going on about the promotion of Colin Harvey's a number 2. Now, Colin, I think there was a season where Everton reserves had won about 11 or 12 games on the trot.
Okay.
So you had the likes of Trevor Stephen, Gary Stevens, Graham Sharp, maybe Kevin Richardson, possibly, I don't know.
That was 81, 82. I went to most of them games.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yeah, fantastic.
But look, so obviously Colin knew and believed in the players that were playing in them reserves. Yeah. And obviously, as his number 2 to Howard, he's telling him, A, B, C, D, and E. They came into the squad. Yeah. And the rest is history, as they say. Yeah.
It's interesting, I think. And also as well, I think Colin had ideas about the style of play, didn't he? Which the pressing style that really he brought in. There's mixed views on this, that he brought in, didn't he? That to press that he'd learned a lot from Don Howe. And so it wasn't just the players that he'd worked with, it was the style of play that Colin had, wasn't it, really? I just think it's just a fascinating period. You were saying about, I'm probably going ahead here, but what was the players who felt, when Howard left, what was the general reaction? What did people say to you?
Well, they were away, actually, on a tour. I'm not sure if they stayed in Hawaii on the way back from somewhere. And
terrible life, professional football.
Nobody knew anything about it.
Yeah.
No, it was very much a shock, as it was to them. As I remember picking up a Liverpool Echo one day, and on the back page, it was saying about that Kendall was leaving. So nobody knew that he was going. And we all say at that time Howard had proven himself as a manager. He brought trophies. We weren't in Europe. As a manager yourself, would you want to better yourself going into Europe and showing that you can succeed over there?
Yeah.
But obviously it didn't work for Howard in that respect. But I think anybody, a player, manager, you always sort of like, will I do it? Will I succeed elsewhere? If you don't do it, you'll never know. But I don't think Howard ever lost his love for Everton because he come back twice.
Yeah.
Obviously, we didn't have any success for them second and third periods. That's why I didn't cover him in the book. But one thing I will say about Howard, and people will slate Howard at the time when we signed Glenn Keeley. And if people read the Glenn Keeley's version of events, Howard obviously raised him because he was at Blackburn with him. And Howard threw Glenn Keely into the Derby game, and Glenn admitted he wasn't fit.
Yeah.
He'd only played a handful of, even if that, reserve games. He wasn't fit. So you're thrown into a game, especially a high-pressure game like that. And then remember Glenn Keely telling me that when Dalglish had gone through, obviously he pulled him back. And he said when he went to the referee, it was Kenny Dalglish that actually got him sent off. Yeah. Just played him with the referee. He's got to go. But I know Howard, again, what Glenn said to me was that Howard did say that he played Arsenal in the League Cup the following Tuesday. Yeah. Now, if Glenn...
Great goal by Gary Stevens in that game at the Parklands, wasn't it? Don't you remember it? Absolutely flew in for about 30 yards.
But if Glenn would have been available, Howard would have picked him. So Howard obviously had faith in his signing. You know, you look at other signings like Jim Arnold. I mean, when he came in, he was like...
Good signing, Jim Arnold,
And again, in the book, people... I was as curious as anybody else about who was Howard's best signing.
Yeah.
You'll get, different names. Kevin Sheedy was one. Southall.
Reed,
Gray. Trevor Stephen.
Yeah.
But as an Evertonian... Or you tell me who was Howard's best signing, but there were so many. Who would have given Alan Harper, a great stand-in, a great squad player. Kevin, and Sheedy. I mean, he couldn't get a game at Liverpool.
Yeah. I was just an interesting. I'm going to go round to say because I spoke about this with Chris when interviewed me about one of my books before Christmas. You spoke before about the Magnificent Seven and that didn't work. But like you had all this like reserve talent, we're saying in the early 80s, I mentioned Richo, Stevens, Sharp, who weren't playing for him. Nev was in the reserves then. Was Howard a lucky manager that he had that talent in the reserve and he also had Colin? Because if that talent wasn't there, he would have been in a lot of problems, wouldn't he? Because 81, 82, 82, 83... 81, 82, certainly. The team changed, didn't it, in the space of a couple of months. Yeah. Was Howard, do you think Howard was a lucky manager because he had that talent in the reserve to use where other managers would have found a struggle if you bought an entire team and none of them have worked? Do you think he was lucky?
I wouldn't say he was lucky. I mean, you never know how good a player is. I mean, you think of some of them young lads that he played towards the end of that 84-85 season. I think just saying before to Chris, we play Luton away and he put the likes of young Johnny Morrissey in, Derek Walsh, Jason Danskin, Darren Oldroyd, a few other lads who were on the fringe of probably first team football. But he did, he had that belief in them sort of lads. And if you remember, like so Robbie Wakenshaw scored that great goal, was it against Man United?
Yeah.
And he had players like Stuart Rimmer as well, if you remember.
Well, he was in the original batch, but was he lucky that he had Sharp, Stevens, Richardson, Southall, Ratcliffe was in the reserves then even, wasn't he? Was he lucky that he had them players in the reserves of that quality to call him?
I would, probably.
I think he was. I think he was. I think other managers might. If the reserves was just a normal reserve team in the early 80s, I think Howard would have been out of a job by 83. But that enabled them to. It bought him time, didn't it? I think. I always think, but you are right. You don't know how players are going to develop, and you've got to coach them and stuff, haven't you? But I just think I always think I've said this to you before. I'm like, he was a lucky manager, Howard. He was a very lucky manager, but you've got to take advantage. You've got to make the best of that luck, haven't you?
Really. Where did Kevin Ratcliffe first play when he came into the team? He played at left back.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you move him to like centre back with Derek Mountfield or
Mark Higgins was his first partner, wasn't he? Yeah, absolutely.
And look how that turned out.
I think for all his first signs in 81, don't know what you think. His signings from after that, they were all good signings, weren't they? Because he got Inchy, didn't he? He bought Inchy, Kevin Sheedy, Reed in 82, didn't he? Then he bought Stephen 83, Andy Gray, Bracewell. So that was 6 signings in 2 years, and they were all
more or less,
all top quality signings, weren't they? So he learned from his mistakes, I think.
But midfield, like this is what we're saying now about present day. There's not enough goals in midfield now. You look at that under Howard.
Yeah.
who couldn't score goals from midfield. Yeah. Everybody could score goals, and even the likes of Harper and Richardson who come in and deputise for somebody who was they would score goals as well. Yeah, I remember being down at Chelsea. Was it in 1987? And it was an absolutely torrential downpour, and the pitch was like a mud bath, nothing like it is today. I remember Alan Harper scoring this screamer of a goal. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
And
remember the shot afterwards at the bar?
Yes, I do.
And the mud.
It's got better memory than me.
Yeah, the mud from the ball was still on the bar at the end of the game, like, you know. But it was, But it's just, what did the players say to you? Like, what did they feel their biggest strength was the bonding between them?
I think that was a key, for sure. I think as well, when I was saying this yesterday to somebody about, we got a bit of arrogance as we were like getting successful. You were going out to games knowing you were going to win, and it became a bit boring, if you understand. Does that make sense?
Yeah. As much as it, like, I know.
A long way from those feelings.
But you were going to games knowing you were going to win. And I remember going to Norwich, we got beat 4-2.
Yeah.
Remember? And that, it was, wow, Everton.
Never left the ball through his legs, didn't he? Remember? Yeah. He had the white kit, didn't he? White kit, didn't he?
I thought he had a red shirt on.
No, he was playing the white kit. Yeah.
Kit tangent here now.
Yeah.
But as I say, you go into games like arrogant. I've got to win this, and they came as a bit of a shock. But then again, once as I say, lost a game, Howard would take him out, team bonding, and he'd just pick up as if where he'd left off, that sort of thing. And I would say that was definitely one of Howard's strengths for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Was his biggest strength then? Do you think, is man management?
I would say 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, people describe I think it was Neil Adams who said about Harvey and Kendall. It was like good cop, bad cop. Howard was a good man manager. Colin, as a professional, has been, as we remember, a great pro.
Yeah.
And I think he was the one who probably pushed them and probably got the best out of the players.
Did you think it would happen if Harvey had not been promoted?
Probably not, no.
No. It's interesting, that, isn't it? Yeah.
So
the players,
Mickey Heaton as well was another unsung hero.
Yeah.
When again, these players will tell you about the staff, and it was quite. I was quite surprised how many times Mickey Heaton came into the conversation. So as I said, you've got a good backroom staff like what Howard had.
Yeah.
And as I say, we're talking about yesteryear and great times.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were bored of winning
I know.
I sort of get what you're saying there, Steve. Like, I definitely get it.
One for the teenagers there watching.
I suppose what you would say is the only comparisons that since then, we was talking about Moyes, is Moyes' best teams, like 2007 onwards, like the last 6 years. You didn't think you were going to win every week, but what you did know, you were going to compete.
Yes. And
you were going to get a performance every week where by and large we're going to be in the game here. It's none of like the sort of quoting Farhad, expected defeats and stuff like that. You knew wherever you went, whoever you're playing against, you knew you're going to get a performance and you're going to be competitive. That's the only.
But Goodison was a fortress under David Moyes as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the results don't lie. In recent years, look at. I mean, how many home games did we win a couple of seasons ago?
Well, this season just gone was the joint lowest in their history, wasn't it, with the 5? But not in that in Kendall's glory year. So that one is out now, isn't it? Pitch Publishing.
Yes, Pitch Publishing.
You're getting that one now. So thank you for coming in, Steve. Thank you,
Pleasure.
Gav. I hope your injury gets better.
Walking
football.
Hey, Matt, let's hope he's not
I'll be back on the grass, waiting to go to former manager's favourite quote. Yeah. But my like is the main talk point of the, unfortunately for me, of the podcast at the moment now. But seriously, it's great, Steve. I really look forward to listening to that. It's always good listening to new insights, isn't it? And new opinions, and great. I look forward to it.
Just a bit of housekeeping. We'll be back with you on Tuesday. We're not there for the usual Monday show, so Tuesday, your next one for the Royal Blue podcast. I've been your host, Chris Beesley, been joined by Gavin Buckland and Steve Zocek. This has been the Royal Blue podcast.